I thought I would do something a little different with today's video. I want to share with you guys my history of having social anxiety. I was always a very shy kid growing up, and this shyness got progressively worse once I hit puberty. Now, to add to my social awkwardness, my mother decided to homeschool me for about 3 or 4 years, right before entering high school, so I had virtually no contact with other kids. I was completely alone, and to make matters worse, when I was 22, I started losing my hair. I'm also short, so these insecurities greatly played into my social anxiety at the time. I am an extremely empathetic person to the point that if I'm watching someone embarrass themselves, I will get shivers and chills up my spine for them. I would often hold the opinions of other people above my own. I was very approval seeking to the point I would just overanalyze everything. I'd be thinking, what is this person's opinion of my opinion of their opinion of my perspective? So I used to self-medicate. I required alcohol if I was ever to go out and attend social gatherings. I remember turning 19, which is the legal drinking age where I grew up, and feeling as though I was forced to enjoy clubs. I remember this very vividly, the car rides to the club. I felt like I was going to war. I'd get so nervous I'd feel shaky. And then, not to mention arriving in the club, whew, the amount of insecurities I had in those places. I'd be terrified of being left alone because I thought if my friends leave me and then I'm by myself, what are all these people going to think about me just standing there awkwardly alone holding a drink like a frickin' wallflower? And then even when I was with my friends, I was nervous because it was often too loud to talk and we'd all just be standing there kind of like awkwardly bobbing our heads to the music, looking at each other, thinking, so why the hell did we think it was a good idea to go to the club? We had no confidence. There was not a chance that I was going to go and dance. Dancing, woo. Expressing myself through movement was not something that I felt comfortable with at all. So that was out of the question. And trying to talk above the music being quite loud, that was out of the question because not only did I feel like I had nothing to say to anyone, but the thought of talking to a random stranger just scared me shitless. So what would usually end up happening is we'd do a few laps around, convince ourselves that there was no one attractive enough worth talking to there, even though there was probably tons of attractive people for a 19-year-old to talk to, and then we'd just leave and be pretty depressed afterwards. Now, this was a long time ago. I currently have close to zero social anxiety. So the question is, how did I overcome my anxiety? What steps did I take to beat it? I understand that social anxiety is quite common and a lot of younger people struggle with this. Me having a lot of personal experience here, I would like to share with you guys my story of just how I overcame my social anxiety. Now, a lot of you guys watching may not agree with some of the tactics I used. You might, I don't know, find that I was a little sleazy. And you got to keep in mind, when I decided I was going to beat this, I was a 19-year-old kid. All I really wanted to do was just get laid. Funny thing is, I actually didn't really want to get laid. I had convinced myself that what I wanted was to get laid, but what I really genuinely was craving was a deep, intimate connection. But like a lot of young adults, I was tricked into thinking that this is what guys do. Guys go out and get laid. That caused quite a bit of conflict too, like the mental battle that would go on, like, hey, you're a guy, you're supposed to want to have sex, but then I'd be thinking, but I don't really find people attractive enough physically to just sleep with them. I want to get to know them. But then, of course, I'd hang out with friends who would brag about all the girls they slept with, and it made me feel like I had to compete with them and do the same thing. But it was never really what my personality type was after. So before you think that this is a video about how I use psychedelics to overcome my social anxiety, I'm going to stop you right there. Psychedelics had absolutely nothing to do with me beating social anxiety. I had already gotten over this fear long before I tried psychedelics. Now, in my Psychedelics Changed My Life video, I mentioned how psychedelics helped me beat a lot of my internal insecurities, and that is true. Even though I did get over my social anxiety, I still had a lot of deep-seated insecurities that were eating me up inside. So I don't want this video to completely contradict my other video, because that's completely accurate. Psychedelics really did help me get to the root of my problems and overcome them. Basically, what it comes down to is people don't change when they're comfortable. People only decide to make a change when they are more uncomfortable staying the same than doing something new. And this is a really sad quality that just a lot of us naturally possess, because it means a lot of people would rather stay in their comfort zones than actually start living. Like that silly quote, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And it's true. But for me, I actually reached the point where I got so uncomfortable staying the same that I had no choice but to change. I was lonely. I really just wanted to make new friends and to meet some girls. And I pretty much had two options. Either I stay socially anxious forever, or I force myself out of the house and just throw myself into the fire and see how I fare. Getting over my social anxiety wasn't a linear process. Success doesn't look like a straight line. It often zigzags, and it's like you just about reach the goal where you think you finally got there, and then you go woof, and you feel even further away than ever. My success was very slow at first. I remember being so scared to say go and talk to a random girl that I would feel shaky. My nerves were terrible. And I faced some pretty serious rejections. An example of a really brutal rejection is I remember one night going out with some friends and, just out at a bar wanting to chat people up, and I approached a group of 6 or 7 girls. And I don't even think I got one sentence out when a girl that wasn't even the one I was directly talking to buds in, and she said to me something like, "You short, ugly little fuck. Get the fuck out of here. You're bothering us." And I was just like I froze. I was thinking, is this girl actually going to be that mean? Because I was never the kind of person who would go up and be obnoxious to women. I would just try to start a casual conversation. I would just, try to get to know people. I wasn't going up and just trying to make people uncomfortable by hitting on them in a very blunt and obnoxious way. So to get this kind of response was shocking. And actually a guy overheard this and he came in and started to defend me, being like, how could you say that to him? It took courage for him to come up and talk to you guys, and you're just gonna shut him down like that? The point of this story is to tell you guys that it wasn't easy. I faced some serious rejections time and time again. If you look at things from the perspective of survival and replication value, our brains are still wired for tribal days. The explosion of our society has happened so quickly that evolutionarily we have not caught up to it yet. We're wired to behave in a setting of, say, 100 to 300 people. So if you're rejected a certain number of times for finding a mate in that kind of scenario, you are never going to reproduce. You're never going to spread your seed and have offspring. Your genetic code just ends with you. And in a survival and replication sense, this is a very terrifying thing for most men. The way that our society is now, where there's billions of people, we are not wired for this. We don't know how to behave. So this fear of rejection is just so ingrained into our psyche that a lot of men can never get over it. Actually, I've heard many men say that they would rather go to war than face rejection from a female. I realized that if I wanted to fix my social anxiety, I need to continuously challenge myself, and I needed to continuously push the boundaries of what I was comfortable with. So I wasn't just going out and socializing, I was constantly pushing the envelope. I was doing some pretty crazy things. Actually, what a lot of people don't know about me is before I started this and my main channel, I actually ran a prank channel for a little while. In fact, I started the whole genre of asking strangers to have sex videos.
Will you have sex with me? Will you have sex with me? Will you have sex with me?
After I released that video, 3 months later, the hugely popular prank channel Whatever actually copied my idea, and they actually did a much better job at it than I did, but they never gave me any credit for stealing my idea, but that's okay, I don't really mind. Most of the videos on that channel have been removed, and I've thought about taking down the videos that are still up many, many times. I'm pretty embarrassed by the videos, but I always end up deciding to leave them available just because I think it's really fascinating how much I've grown in such a short period of time. If you watch the video, I'll include a link in the description, you'll see that I'm not even the same person anymore. And this wasn't even that long ago. I dramatically changed in a very short period of time, which is thanks to psychedelics. Doing silly things like doing the pranks, like asking strangers to have sex, it wasn't that we wanted to have sex with them. If someone even like said, yes, I'm down, we would kind of like take a step back and be like, yeah, I wasn't exactly serious, but I'm flattered that you would. What we were ultimately doing was trying to tear down all of our socially programmed levels of discomfort with putting ourselves on the line. We got so good at just being comfortable in the uncomfortable that we were able to do some pretty uncanny things. It took approximately 5 years. 5 years of consecutively going out and pushing the boundaries of my comfort zone till I crushed my social anxiety. I've always been a pretty weird guy, and I think a lot of my social anxiety just came from me feeling like others weren't going to accept me. I thought that other normal humans were, they were cool. Growing up, I always thought that I was kind of the outcast, and I wasn't really into sports, and I never really did that social stuff. Like, I didn't have a large group of friends, so I felt like a bit of an outcast, and yeah, I realized in the end that it's cool to be weird. I respect people who behave like themselves. And I realized that if people aren't going to like me or accept me for who I actually am, then there's no point in having them as a friend. Like, it sounds so obvious and so easy, yet especially young people, a lot of them have this mindset where they're trying to impress others. They're wearing a mask. They always have this facade on where they're trying to be cool or trying to be with the in crowd. Oh my God, I sound like such an old man talking right now. And they behave as if they're anyone but themselves because they're afraid of people judging them. And it's funny, but it's true. The older you get, the more you realize that it's not worth putting on an act for anybody. It really isn't worth it, because then what ends up happening is you've got this big group of friends who start thinking that you're someone that you're not. And yeah, nobody wants that. Then you have no real genuine connections with people. All you have is a bunch of fake ties that can just be easily snipped. It was actually through facing these fears that I met my girlfriend, Jasmine. I was at Starbucks one day and she was just sitting at a table by herself, and I decided that, hey, she's really cute. I need to go over there and meet her. So I introduced myself, we started talking, and now I am currently in a relationship with the most amazing girl on this planet. And that would have never happened if I didn't have social anxiety, because me having social anxiety initially made me push my comfort zone and challenge myself to the point where I became comfortable in the uncomfortable. So I became comfortable doing things that would scare most people. If I never had social anxiety and I never really challenged it and got good at meeting strangers, there's no way in hell we would have met. There's just no way in hell that I would have ever, or the old me at least, would have never sat down at that table with her. So it's thanks to overcoming this fear that I'm even in the relationship that I'm in today. You can see everything that happens to you in your life from multiple perspectives. There's the perspective where, yes, it sucked and it was a brutal 5 years of trying to cure myself and get over it. But looking back, I had so many fun and crazy adventures. I learned so much about myself and about other people. It was really an invaluable learning lesson. And it's all thanks to initially having that social anxiety. I really feel that a lot of the time, some of the things that we might find are weaknesses are actually strengths in disguise, because it wasn't until I challenged that what I perceived as a weakness, that fear, that it ended up becoming one of my greatest strengths. Now I am perfectly fine in social situations. I wouldn't say that I'm amazing socially, because I've kind of become my own person and I'm a pretty weird dude. So there's a whole lot of people who just don't get me, but I'm at the point now where it's like, I just could give two shits. There's absolutely no reason why anybody should be controlled by their fear. False expectations appearing real. That really is what fear means. Look at my fear. I was afraid of being judged by others, but what it ultimately came down to was I was afraid of my own judgments. I was a very nasty, strict taskmaster in my mind. And I realized that Other people's judgments can't affect you unless you allow them to. For example, if someone calls you a name, you have to acknowledge that you've received the insult. If someone called me a name and say Japanese, I'd obviously have no idea that they were insulting me, so I'd just be like, oh, okay. Like, I just, be like, whatever. It's the same when someone insults you in your own language or someone tries to put you down. Imagine they were speaking a different language and you didn't even understand it. You wouldn't be able to acknowledge it because you didn't understand it. So when people offer you negativity or they try to put you down, you have to realize that all that they're really doing is making you feel low because they feel low. And I know it's cliche to say this, but it's 100% true. Especially when people get particularly agitated with others. Everybody is a mirror of everyone else. And usually the aspects that you really don't like in a person are actually aspects you really don't like in yourself. So when people offer you negativity, just realize that what they're criticizing is what they don't like in themselves. Because here's where things get interesting. When you no longer criticize others or you no longer judge others as harshly, you'll notice there's kind of a mirror effect that happens. In the same regard, you're no longer judging yourself or criticizing yourself as harshly. When people have qualities that, say, are negative qualities, but you don't share those same negative qualities, you'll notice other people, say, might have negative qualities, but it won't give you an emotional response. If other people's negativity causes an emotional response in you, it means that you probably share those qualities deep down. Now, how to overcome these negative emotional responses is a video all in its own right, so I'm not going to really get into that here. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to give it a like, and if you haven't already, then subscribe to our channel for more weekly content. Till next time, everybody, take care and be safe.